Over my shoulder is Kongzi, Master Kong, known to us as Confucius. There is no thinker, no scholar in China's history that has had a larger impact on Chinese culture, indeed on East Asian culture and world culture than Kongzi, than Confucius. And we're at a great temple of Confucius built by the Yuan dynasty, the Mongol ruling dynasty of China 700 years ago. And this is a case of the emperor paying homage to the great scholar, philosopher Confucius. Indeed, Confucius has shaped so much of China's thinking about life, society, and statecraft that emperors for 2,000 years have paid homage to Confucius. The role has been deep, and we can say that Confucius's role in Chinese civilization is somewhat akin to the role of the great Greek philosophers Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle on Western civilization. Indeed, Confucius was born in the middle of the 6th century BCE, at just about the same time as Socrates, and he lived until the early part of the 5th century BCE and overlapped with Plato, and Plato, of course, was then followed by Aristotle. So we have two great schools of philosophical thought that were formed in the eastern part of Eurasia and in the western part of Eurasia at roughly the same period. This was already noted by Karl Jaspers, the German thinker of the middle of the 20th century, who noted that there was an axial age around 500 BCE in which the great philosophies of the world took shape across the East and the West, roughly simultaneously. What is so important to understand is the role that Confucian thought has played in China's life, and also, I think, at a profound and deep level, similarities of Confucius's thought and his contemporaries in Greece, so far away, not knowing each other, but reaching some important similarities of ideas about human beings and about society, even at the ends of this vast Eurasian landmass. So Confucius was born in the Zhou dynasty, but during a period of turmoil, during the Warring States period. And Confucius aimed to try to overcome the turmoil of the age, both by giving individuals a path to internal harmony and peace, and especially giving society a path to overcome the turmoil, to create order and harmony and well-being in society. At the core of Confucius's ideas, and then the ideas of Confucius's disciples, was the idea of becoming a virtuous person, of cultivating the possibilities of the good in human nature. And Confucius taught that it was the individual's capacity to be good and the capacity to have harmonious relations in society that made it possible to have a good life. So Confucius taught about individual virtues and relational virtues, how people should behave to others. The most fundamental teaching of Confucius is known to us also in Western culture as the Golden Rule, because this is a principle of ethics that Confucius taught in the East and is an ideal shared in the West. Confucius taught to his disciples, do not do to others what you would not have them do to you. The most basic relational ethics, the way to behave properly. But Confucius taught more specific virtues that became the core of China's thinking about virtuous life. And those virtues include the deep Chinese concept of ren, of benevolence, of behaving benevolently towards others in society, and the crucial concept for Confucius of li, propriety, and following rituals. Confucius believed that following rituals and ancient practice was crucial to building the sturdiness and the order of the individual personality. By following ritual, people learned how to behave, how to be proper, how to have the decent relations with others. Another deep Confucian ideal is filial piety, that children should respect the parents, sons should respect the father. And when turned at the societal level, people should respect the ruler, but of course the ruler should behave with ren and with li, with benevolence and with propriety. Other Confucian virtues are the virtues of wisdom, that meaning that knowledge is essential, and Confucius emphasized constantly the need to study, the need to learn, because it was knowledge that allowed for the full flowering of the good in human nature. Another virtue, righteousness, that people should behave righteously and justly to others. So Confucius taught in the idea of an ordered society. And during the warring period, he went from state to state to try to convince the rulers about behaving properly, and through virtuous behavior to inspire the virtues of the citizenry and create a state worthy of the good of humanity. Well, like so many other philosophers, and I would include Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, real politics proved more difficult and resistant to the wisdom of the great sages. And so during the warring state period, the wars continued. And Confucius's wisdom was perhaps more urgent than ever, and followed by later students and disciples of disciples, but it would be a long time before the teachings would be embodied at the level of the state rather than at the level of philosophy. One of Confucius's great disciples, a disciple of disciple about 100 years later, is Mencius, known to us as the greatest of Confucius's disciples. Mencius famously taught that human nature is good, but it needs to be cultivated. And he made the famous analogy of human nature and the sprout, the bean sprout that has the potential to grow and to flourish, but needs to be cultivated, needs water, needs nutrients, needs to be protected, so that human nature is good, but actual goodness of human beings is not something to be taken for granted, but something to be cultivated. And Mencius had a political theory that he emphasized deeply, which is that virtue of the people must be nurtured and actually depends on the virtues of the leader. Politics is inherently a matter of ethics. to have a stable, harmonious society depends on the ruler acting in a harmonious way. A Confucian idea very much deepened by Mencius, by Confucius's great scholar and one whose texts brought Confucianism a further depth. Now, it was in the Han Dynasty, at the end of the Warring States period, and then following the brief Qin Dynasty that unified China. The Han Dynasty was the period in which Confucian thought became the formal state thought. Now China was a unified state. China had the possibility of peace within a large unified state. And the Han emperors embraced Confucianism and its teachings about harmony, mutual respect, filial piety, respect for teachers, something I very much like, respect for government, and the need for government to be benevolent and virtuous. That was the core of Confucianism during the Han Dynasty.